Friends, we gather here together to support Sue and her family, Kim's family. We gather here together to do exactly what we should be doing when someone dies in our community, to offer our support, but more importantly, to remember and to mourn and to bring it down a little. To remember and to mourn, but also to comfort the bereaved. Following the service, we're going to invite you to come into the foyer of the temple and to get what we're affectionately calling a nosh to go. You'll see members of the family and move, we hope, towards your vehicles. And it's not that we don't want you to stay. It feels like a non-Jewish thing to do. But we also want to recognize that we want to make sure that you are driving safely and getting home. And as the weather gets worse, that's the most important thing. The family are going to have 2 nights of minyan at the Worrel home, and the front desk of Temple has the address, but I'm going to also give it as well. It's 5405 McPherson Drive. Again, 5405 McPherson Drive. And on Saturday night, the minyan will be at 7 p.m., and on Sunday at 5 p.m. And I want to invite you to silence your cell phones. Judaism tells us that try as we might, we are actually unable to determine the length of our lives. So instead of knowing how many days and weeks we have here on earth, God has given us the ability to determine not the length of our days, but how we choose to live our days. A famous Jewish story. There was once a king who owned a large, beautiful, pure diamond, and the gem had no equal anywhere in the world. And one day the diamond sustained a scratch. And the king called the most skilled diamond cutters and offered them a great reward if they could remove the imperfection. But no one could repair the blemish. And after some time, a gifted jeweler came to the king and promised to make the rare diamond even more beautiful than before the mishap. And the man kept his word. Because with superb artistry, he engraved a lovely rosebud around the imperfection and used the scratch to make the stem. Kim was a craftsman. He could see roses where others saw sand traps. A golf course in disarray was a business that could be saved. With the shift of a hand, a change in follow-through, a golfer could hit the sweet spot and hit it straight. Life can bruise and wound, but Kim learned, as we're going to hear today, that through hard work and patience and humility and profound kindness, that we can etch something beautiful in our lives. A life well lived, a partnership worthy of God's blessing. Children and grandchildren and friends and family to keep close. Because Kim was a gem. He was a diamond of a human being. And we're going to hear about that today. And yes, like all humans, there was a scratch or two. But what made him special was why we're here to remember him and mourn him today is that he had this way of seeing the good, seeing the rose, always possible to etch into the scratch. At times like this, we don't always know the words to say. So we turn to the words of our tradition, words that have comforted our people in times precisely like this, in light and in darkness, in life as in death. We continue with the words of Psalm 23, and it's my pleasure to invite forward Cantor Lissick from Temple Israel.
Adonai roi lo echsar bino teshayar biteni alemei menuchot nafshi yeshovev yancheni v'maglei tzedek yancheni v'maglei tzedek leman shemo. Taroch lefanai shulchan neged tzorirai dishanta v'shemen roshi kosi revaya. Adonai roi lo echsar. A Psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. God leads me beside the still waters. God restores my soul. God guides me in straight paths for God's name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou prepare a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai forever.
Ecclesiastes tells us that there's a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. But some seasons are so much harder than others, and this is one of them. Kim embraced each season, the time to play golf professionally and the time to develop and manage golf courses so others could enjoy the beauty of the sport as well. He embraced his season for raising boys and then sitting back and appreciating the good men they had become. Kim lived each season to its fullest, not looking back on the past nor waiting for what was coming, but living in the moment. And we were blessed to enjoy so many of those seasons with him, beside him, basking in the beauty of B'nai Mitzvah, of weddings, of births of a new generation, and most of all, appreciating the love he built and the love he so generously shared. For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence, and a time to speak. Now is our time to remember a blessed soul who lifted our lives in countless ways.
With Job, we say Adonai Natan, v'Adonai Lakach, Hishem, Adonai Mevarach. God has given, God has taken away. Blessed be the name of God. Our people are well acquainted with the valley of the shadow of death. Death and sorrow are not strangers to us. And yet the centuries have taught us that there is a good name beyond the grave, and that there is strength with faith. With Job, we say Adonai Natan. God, for all that was good in Kim's life, we offer our deepest sense of thanks. With Job, we say Adonai Lakach. God, you have taken away. And we pray to turn our broken hearts into an altar of trust before which we can acknowledge God's sovereignty and love and say thank you to God for Kim's life. As we say, Hishem Adonai Mevarach, may God's name be blessed forever and ever for the gift of Kim. Let's take a moment now for a silent meditation and prayer. I invite forward Jeff Cohen, Kim's friend and Sue's friend, to speak.
Hi, I'm Jeff Cohen. I'm a friend of Kim's from Charlotte. Kim had the best stories. They always left me spellbound. If you are into golf, Kim met them all and he did it all. But being Kim, of course, he was pretty humble about it all. He knew it was a big deal to do what he had done, but he just felt fortunate about it rather than entitled. He and I had lunch this summer, and one of the stories he told me blew me away. I asked him how he got his start in the golf business, and he told me he had virtually no experience in the golf business at the age of 27 when he interviewed with the Nicklaus Company to run its premier golf property in Florida. He said he was lucky enough to get the job, and that led to a long and successful career building and managing golf courses all across the U.S. with and for Jack Nicklaus. He went on to tell me about the day that Jack walked into his office and said, "Come on, let's go have lunch with Arnie." And that's how he met Arnold Palmer. Or how he had to tell unsuccessfully the curmudgeonly Gardner Dickinson that he could no longer drive his golf cart onto the middle of the driving range to practice. And so many more stories. But what blew me away about all these stories was the audacity of Jack Nicklaus to hire this largely unknown guy for such a hugely important job. This was Jack Nicklaus, and he could hire anybody he wanted to. But I guess those of us here today aren't surprised, are we? Because that's the first impression Kim made on everyone, isn't it? Think back to the time when you met Kim. Can you recall it? I remember it vividly. No surprise, it was at Raintree, and a mutual friend, Mike, included me in a foursome with Kim. Now, I must admit, it took a while to see Kim the person, because Kim the golfer was so impressive. This was before he had injured his ankle, and his swing was still free and easy and beautiful. It had to have been the most fun I'd ever have on the golf course, watching another golfer play golf. But as the day wore on, I was taken even more by this friendly, soft-spoken, kind, thoughtful, funny guy. There was just so much to like about him. He oozed all the wonderful qualities you could want in a friend, and I was lucky enough for 17 years to call him a friend. So maybe, in hindsight, we shouldn't be so surprised by Jack Nicklaus's decision 40 years ago. Just maybe it made perfect sense.
I'm reading a eulogy on behalf of Kip, Kim's brother. Good afternoon. I'm Asher Knight on behalf of Kip Worrel. And growing up, I was the big brother. When the news came that Kim had no more months left, only weeks, I thought to myself, I have never really told Kim how proud I was to have him for a brother. Most of you here today knew him as a professional golfer and businessman. I sat down with tears flowing to tell him just how proud I was of him and how much he meant to me as a brother. This is the message I sent to him. Kim, I have so much to say about how proud I am to call you my brother. We have come a long way by being raised by the best single mom that God gave us. When we lived on Monroe Street in Muncie, you were 3 and I was 5, and we did not have a blade of grass in the yard. Then we moved to the projects on Madison Street where the floors were cement and we slept on a canvas army cot. We had powdered milk to drink, but we never went hungry and always had a roof over our heads. I would like to think that is what helped build us into the men we are today. As we continued on through school, you eventually found that little white ball playing golf. And from that point on, you would never be short on grass again. It has been a joy to watch how you went from picking up balls on the driving range at Crestview to where you are today. I cannot begin to tell you times in my travel for work I would introduce myself and be asked if I was Kim Worrel's brother. That would then lead into a story about how you also impacted their life. From 2 boys with no father figure in our lives, we each raised 3 children who turned out pretty damn good. His words, not mine. I'm so proud to have called you my brother for 67 years. And would do it again for another 67 if we could. I would not change one thing. I would never have thought that I would be trying to tell you what an honor it has been to be your big brother for all these years, or saying how much I love you and how much I will miss you in a text. But here I am. God gave me the best brother ever, and I have loved every minute we had together. I love you, Kim Worrel, your brother. Kip. Invite forward Kim's friend and colleague, Chuck Smith.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here today to celebrate probably the greatest person I've ever met in my life. I met Kim in 2005 and learned real quickly his commitment to family first. 2 weeks into my position at Birkdale, I informed Kim that I'd changed my mind about taking my son to motorcycle race in Dallas, Texas, that would take me away from the course for about 10 days at a very inopportune time for the course, with a big college tournament at a club in just 2 weeks. The next day, Kim made a special trip to Birkdale to thank me for my commitment to the club. He then proceeded to explain to me why he and David started Pinnacle Golf, to prove to the industry, one, that employees aren't disposable, And 2, that we should always remember that we work to live, we don't live to work. He then informed me that I would be accompanying my family to Texas and reminded me that the golf course would be there when I got back. Kim's passion for golf was unmatched only by his passion for each and every person he employed and came in contact with. He portrayed an uncanny knack of remembering not only names of his staff members, but also their loved ones' names. He truly cared about what their families had going on and thoroughly enjoyed listening to stories about our wives, our husbands, and our kids. He showed his passion for the game in so many ways on and off the course, but his greatest passion was improving playability of any and all golf courses he was a part of. From all the golf courses he built with Jack Nicklaus, to construction and startup of the Alabama Golf Trail, to the golf courses he managed under the Pinnacle Golf Property umbrella. The passion was so evident that I accepted my current position 9 years ago today, having never seen the property. I had no worries of the task ahead, knowing the course had a lot left to be desired, because I knew as long as I had Kim by my side in this journey, that I'd be able to take that property to the level we all desired. I knew he'd always have my back, fight to get any and all resources we would need, but mostly would push me as a professional to be the best I could be. Yet all of these passions stem from his love to play the game. I was very fortunate to play hundreds of rounds with Kim as recently as 2 months ago, and so thankful for that round of golf. In those rounds, I learned so much about his character. Most people didn't know Kim as a meteorologist. Before every round, Kim informed me of the weather and what we were up against by saying, "I think today is a one-hat day," or "I think today is a two-hat day," depending on how many hats he thought he'd need to get through the round of golf, according to how much we would be sweating. Even though we were out playing for fun, Kim never would move his ball. No matter how unfortunate the lie was, he always played it as he found it. He always played the ball till it was holed out, didn't believe in gimmies. Sure didn't help my scores any, as I love a gimme putt. But it showed me to be the best, there are no shortcuts, and Kim never took shortcuts. Just like his battle with cancer, he tackled everything head on and always battled at 100% effort. But the biggest thing I learned in my rounds with Kim was his love for his family. The only thing more important to Kim than golf was his family. Kim was a very private guy, always cared about others way more than himself, it seemed. But he loved sharing the stories about his family when we played golf and all of his 3 boys and how proud he was of all 3 of them for all they've become. Through these stories, I got to see a glimpse into Kim and the love he had for family, especially his own family. But Kim was a great storyteller and had too many stories to share today, but one of my favorites was a guy that worked with him named Peanut. After one of their golf course builds with the Nicholas group, they had a big celebratory bonfire going on when Kim noticed Peanut was in a lot of pain. Showing his true concern, as Kim always did, for his fellow man, Kim asked Peanut if he was okay. Peanut replied, "Mr. Kim, I've had this toothache for a couple weeks and I can't stand it anymore." Peanut goes over to the toolbox, grabs a pair of needle nose pliers, takes a big swig of the whiskey, reaches in, pulls the tooth out, and immediately starts screaming, crying. Kim looks at him, and all of his compassion that he always asked Peanut, "Peanut, are you okay? Is there anything I can do for you?" Peanut, between the excruciating screams, looks at Kim and goes, "Mr. Kim, I'm fine. I just pulled the wrong tooth." Kim was passionate about everything, all things he cared about, family, golf, and all people. He truly never met a stranger. I felt fortunate to be able to call him boss. but even more thankful to be able to call him my friend. I will think of him every single day for the rest of my life. And I will miss him every single one of those days. Until I see you again, I love you, sir.
I'd like to invite forward Deb Morse, speaking on behalf of the Morse family.
When Kim opted to step outside of his Muncie, Indiana roots to find his life partner, I wonder if he said to himself, yeah, I'm going to find an intensely smart and driven Jewish woman raised and educated in the Northeast who comes as a package deal with hyper-involved parents and a grandmother who determined a person's integrity by how much they ate and was such a Bostonian that when Susan told Mama that he was from the Midwest, she said, oh, the Midwest? You mean Cambridge? Yep, he probably said, this sounds like a perfect match for me. And we were disoriented too, and was like, he seems so relaxed. And why is he the only one at the table not asking about what's for dinner while we're eating lunch? And what's with all the golfing? His marriage to my sister was the union of two very different people from very different backgrounds who came to raise their children to be the best of both of them. For Kim, family was everything, and he entered into his marriage to Sue with his eyes wide open about what he was getting into. He not only loved his in-laws, he adored them. He was grateful for every cinnamon roll, pecan roll, blueberry pie, Thanksgiving turkey, the gefilte fish, family trips, and sharing of sound business advice and counsel. Of course, all of that is nothing compared to what he gave them, their first grandchildren. From Alden's agenda of awesome adventures during Thanksgiving, to Reed's endless rides on the MBTA with hopefully a stop at Fenway Park, to Kyle's love of helping his Grammy set the table and who is now taking care of all of us in Boston. These boys have lit up our lives. Kim has shown his three boys how to be perfect gentlemen, how to meet people where they are, and how to wake up grateful every day. Kim's legacy of being the most decent person we've been blessed to know is secure. During this time between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we are left to wonder who will be at rest and who will wander. Kim will surely rest in peace because he lived the dream and he knew it.
I invite forward Alden and Reed and Kyle.
Over the past few weeks, you guys have reached out and expressed condolences via text or call. You've kept us in your thoughts and your prayers. And for those here today and for those streaming and tuning in, we just wanted to say thank you. On August 26th, we played Dad's last round of golf. On the 11th tee, I was in the fairway bunker. Dad was in the fairway. The fairway bunker is a tricky shot. So I looked over at Dad and I said, how do you hit this? He came over. He said, well, do you want to hit the ball first? You want to choke up on the club? You want a quiet lower body? I looked at Alden and I said, it's like a golf Google. He was a master at the game. He was a genius at his craft. In college, I had the opportunity to go to Copenhagen. Dad had meetings in Greensboro that morning. He dropped me off at the airport. He was going to try and make it back. Sorry. You pulled into the airport and he was already there. He had checked me in, and you looked at me, and you said, I don't know how that man does it. I don't know either. He was always there for his family. Always. In the last few weeks, we were sitting outside. He was sleeping, or so I thought, and I was on my phone. And in a low, deep voice, I just hear, Airbus. What? He said, it's an Airbus. You can hear it by the sound of the engines. I didn't see a plane, so I pulled out my phone and I looked. It was an Airbus. It was an A321. It was going to New York City. I became obsessed with planes. So he became obsessed with planes. I cared. So he cared. Sorry. To the man that taught me it's okay to play golf bad. Just to play bad fast. To the man that knew that baseball wins were best rewarded with McDonald's and losses were even more deserving of the same. To the man that taught me to follow a passion for a career and to give it 150%. Thank you. And I love you.
So, Reed, Kyle, and I were trying to figure out in what order we were going to do our speeches. Rock, paper, scissors, best golf shot. So, we weighed ourselves. I'm not going to mention any numbers, but take it in order as you will. I did have a big breakfast, so maybe I should have gone first. I would like to thank all of you who have come to celebrate the life of my father. I've read this like 20 times. I'm going to do this. I've seen many familiar faces along with many new faces here today. It's so nice to know he had an impact on so many people. I would like to share what my dad meant to me. My dad was my best friend, grandfather to my children, and business confidant, not just a dad. I think this is very important for people to know. He was always a phone call away and always knew how to say the right thing when I needed it. He had a way of making the most stressful situations seem easy to fix. My dad and I had something in common. We loved grass. I'm guessing most of you thought I would say golf, and yes, that too, even though he was much better at it than I. And grass seems silly to talk about in a eulogy, but it honestly had a lot of meaning to my father and me. I own a landscape business in Texas, a business that would not exist if it wasn't for my father's lifelong lessons. From a very young child, I got to watch my dad in his element. I spent the summers with my dad going to work with him before sunup and staying after sunset. He would take a pile of dirt and make it into something breathtaking. He had that vision for a golf course, when all most could see is some random pastures, hills, and land. I can remember riding around in Easy Goes with my dad and him pointing to some random area describing the most beautiful layout of a golf hole before anything was there except for cow patties and trees. Once he was done with the design, build, and staffing of a course, the lessons of the grass were soon to follow. Most people take for granted the gorgeous lines in the fairway of a golf course, or how everything just seems to be manicured so perfectly. But nobody really sees the behind-the-scenes work that goes into it. And that's where my dad and I were one. There is something breathtaking to both my dad and I, watching a fairway mower lay down those straight lines, or a bunker maintainer raking a bunker to perfection. Sometimes my dad and I would go out under headlights and just watch the magic happen before the golf course would open. We wouldn't even say anything to each other. We both got our happiness out of sitting in silence, watching the morning dew of the golf course get striped for that day's play. Recently, my dad retired not long before getting ill. My dad could have gone and consulted with any golf franchise around the world, but he chose to enjoy his retirement by getting on a fairway mower and bringing donuts to all the maintenance staff. He called this Donut Wednesdays, to his newfound joy of a golf course, Skybrook Golf Club. I would call my dad at 7 in the morning and hear the machine's blades winding down and him say, "Good morning," in the happiest of voices. I would say, "Dad, what the heck are you doing mowing fairways?" He would reply, "Enjoying my day." This is where I know I have my dad's genes. Sometimes I will grab one of our machines and go out and join a crew and just find peace in mowing perfectly striped lines on a wide open field. I am not sure what he enjoyed more, hitting the perfect golf shot or laying down perfect lines with a fairway mower. I do know one thing. His passion for golf and a perfectly manicured golf course are something I admired about him. In my dad's final months and days, he really showed me so much. My dad was very ill and always found the energy to put on his game face for his family. I spent a lot of time with him in the final months, time that I was very fortunate to have with him. My dad loved to sit outside and feel the breeze and watch the golfers behind his house, and maybe the occasional midday nap. One day on my final trips, my dad said he wanted to go sit outside with me. He was very weak and very tired, but I think he knew he had something left in the tank. My dad sat down in his chair and could barely open his eyes from fatigue and briefly dozed off. I decided to grab a pitching wedge and hit golf balls in the backyard, trying to land them between the two cable boxes in the backyard. After the third or fourth ball, I randomly hear, "You have to commit." I turned and looked, and my dad's eyes were wide open, as if he were 20 years old again, and began to give me my final golf lesson. He says, "You can't decelerate your swing. You have to commit. Hands forward, ball in the back of your stance, and open the face." I kid you not, I was in shock. But I held back my emotion of him perking to life and listened to everything he said. And sure enough, I hit the cable box perfectly. My dad says, "I bet we just got an extra TV channel." I knew that was my last one-on-one golf lesson with him. But it was more than just a golf lesson. It was a lesson on how he did life. You have to commit. Everything my dad did, he was all in. Thank you, everything, Dad. I hope you hit him down the middle of those perfectly striped fairways in heaven. I love you.
Wow. Thank you all for being here. For those that don't know, my name is Kyle Worrel. I'm Kim Worrell's youngest son. Apparently the lightest son as well. I figured since no one's talked about golf yet today, I might as well touch on it a little bit. I'm going to share a letter that I wrote for my dad a few months back after he became ill. For those that don't know, I spent a large portion of my childhood and teenage young adult years alongside my dad. I was an avid, competitive golfer and also frequently traveled with my dad to his golf properties on work and golf-related adventures. So here we go. Dad, I love you. I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for everything. You mean the absolute world to me, Dad. You've taught me everything I know, and you have undeniably made me into the man I am today. With unbelievable grace, you taught me the game I love, golf. And by teaching me the game of golf, you also taught me the bigger game of life. So a few thank yous are in order for everything you've done for me and everything you've taught me. Thank you for how you showed up as a father. You do everything for our family. You are selfless. You are kind. You are humble. No matter how busy or how tired you were after a long day, and those days were long, you always prioritized us. There wasn't a game you missed, a school event you weren't at. Hell, I don't even think I ever heard your phone hit voicemail. As I get older, I have so much more appreciation for your ability to balance all that life throws at you and to make sure that family always comes first. Thank you for teaching me the value of hard work. You never asked anyone to do something you wouldn't do. You're the first to show up, the last to leave, and always the first to lend a hand. There's nothing in this life that you didn't earn. Every success, win, and exciting milestone was directly traced back to your hard work, day in and day out. Thank you for exposing me to business at a young age. You brought 8-year-old, 14-year-old, 20-year-old me on all sorts of work trips and adventures, several of which I probably should not have been allowed to join on. By shadowing you, I learned that running a successful business requires you to treat your employees with respect. You always told me that no one ever worked for you. People worked with you. I remember many nights when you'd come home with your arms full of rolled up blueprints of your soon-to-be next project. Without hesitation, you'd unroll these massive layouts, and together we'd trace lines, draw sketches, and discuss for hours. Thank you for always teaching me to trust my gut. Thanks to you, my gut is a special, special thing. It's like my secret sauce or my mojo. You taught me to identify and trust that weird, tingly instinct. Do you remember during our tour of Elon University when I leaned over to you mid-tour and said, Dad, this is the fucking one? I don't know why, Dad, but this is the one. I see y'all back there, thanks. I've tapped into and trusted that gut feeling with every big decision ever since, and it hasn't failed me once. Now for the big one. Thank you for teaching me the game I love, golf. I just love this game. By teaching me golf, you indirectly taught me so many other things, Dad. You taught me the value of hard work, that you can't get something worth getting quickly or easily. It requires sunburn, calloused hands, and blistered feet, repetition, hard work, concentration, and dedication. Golf taught me honesty and integrity. Hell, it's the only game in the world where you can call a penalty on yourself, even though we don't. Through golf, you taught me how to win and, more importantly, how to lose. Win with dignity, lose with grace. If you lose, get back up and try again. Golf taught me to look at the big picture. If I have a bad hole, that doesn't mean I have a bad round. By definition, the game of golf provokes a relentless pursuit of perfection. Your mastery of the game was a constant reminder that there's always more to learn, another level to aspire to, greater skill to strive for. It ignited in me an internal drive to push myself to be better and improve in all aspects of my life, on and off the course. I'll end with sharing one of my most memorable lessons that I will carry with me for the rest of my life. I just finished playing in a junior tournament, and the only direction my ball did not go was straight. I was understandably upset and pissed. After the round, as we were walking to the car, you just stopped abruptly and sort of smirked. After asking you what the hell was so funny, you paused and explained that your favorite golf rounds are the ones where you play your worst. 15-year-old me thought you were nuts, or maybe just giving some BS parent advice. But what you went on to explain, that the reason your favorite rounds are your worst ones is because those are the rounds where you learn the most. I don't learn anything when I make 18 pars, Kyle, he said to me. This comment was so simple, but it was so unbelievably impactful. Sure, it was important to understand that my worst golf rounds are valuable, but what I truly took away is that my worst days are my most valuable. That's when I learn, I grow, and I change. That singular moment with you. shaped the way I think and approach everything in my life. Whether you knew it or not, you gave me the strength to overcome any obstacle, not just a bad round of golf. Thank you for that, Dad. While this was difficult for me to share, I know regardless of what I face ahead, that you are with me forever. You are part of who I am, and you always will be. You're forever a part of my soul, Dad. Even after you're gone, I'm so lucky I get to have you with me every time I stick a tee in the ground. For each divot I fill and each birdie putt I drop, you're right there with me. For every life lesson I learn and life challenge I face, I know you gave me the keys to conquer and overcome it. I love you, Dad, so much. Thank you.
Invite Sue Worrel.
At the risk of being one person too many speaking this morning, I appreciate you giving me a couple minutes to talk about my husband. But first, these boys, right? So, I am deeply sad, but I have this and all of their fabulous women to keep us going forward. I confess I wasn't sure if I could or would want to speak today. Honestly, writing about my husband in the past tense is almost too hard to bear. But today you've heard about all the ways that Kim was an amazing human, as a brother, a father, an employer, and a friend. But there's one more, and that's Kim as a husband and a partner. So most of you here today know me fairly well. I am, shall we say, a little strong-willed, with a no-nonsense, don't mess with me reputation. For many husbands, I would be considered too hard to handle, but not for Kim. When I went into Sue mode, he just smiled, stepped back, and let me do my thing. My kids are laughing. I'm like, yeah. He had this incredible ability to just let me be. Aside from our children, it was the single greatest gift he could ever have given me. When describing me or our marriage, Kim used to say the following. He would say, well, Sue and I have an agreement. We agreed that she would make all of the small decisions in our relationship, and I would make all of the major ones. Thing is, though, after 30 plus years of marriage, there hasn't been a major decision yet. And he'd laugh and laugh and laugh. And the man wasn't wrong. Publicly, Kim was my silent partner. But privately, he was my outspoken, take-no-prisoners, full-throated cheerleader. In his eyes, there was nothing I couldn't do. And he was fully prepared to step aside and let me do it. If I faltered, he picked me up. If my confidence wavered, he reassured me by recounting my past successes. If I grew weary, he carried me. I genuinely believe that I am who I am because of Kim's love, but mostly because of how completely and fully he knew me. More often than not, even better than I knew myself. There's something else I need to share today. As most of you know, Kim was not Jewish. However, when Kim and I married almost 32 years ago, Kim was willing and eager for us to create a Jewish family and home, and he was all in. We immediately joined temples in every city in which we lived. The boys went to Jewish summer camps and played in Maccabi games all over North America, including in San Diego, where Kim went as a coach. Kim became a huge lover of Israel, traveled there twice, and loved it when our Israeli friends came and stayed with us. We paid dues, made donations, and embraced Jewish philanthropy. Kim fasted on Yom Kippur, celebrated the holidays, and learned how to say the blessings to cover for me if I missed a night at home, lighting the Hanukkah candles with the boys. He even loved the food, not just the brisket and the rugula, but the hard-to-love stuff too, the gefilte fish, simmis, matzah. Kim invested fully in our Jewish life and embraced it with enthusiasm. But there was a time not so long ago, however, when marrying a non-Jew was viewed as a shanda, a shame or a disgrace. Intermarriage was prophesied as the single greatest threat to the future of the Jewish people. That was the climate at the time Kim and I were married. In fact, a long time ago, in a Jewish community far, far away, I applied for a job and was told that while I was qualified for the position, the organization could not hire me because my interfaith marriage risked alienating large segments of their community. But that wasn't the case here in Charlotte. Here in Charlotte, there was no need to prove ourselves. There was no asterisk next to our name among the Jewish ranks. Kim was welcomed and celebrated fully. And when I was given the privilege of taking the helm of the Federation, there was no one cheering more loudly than Kim. He was willing and faithful attendee at all Federation's events, patiently hanging around while I did my thing. And when Kim got sick, this community responded. Oh, did you respond? Cards, texts, and emails flooded our mailbox, phones, and inboxes. You said prayers, made calls, and demonstrated the most creative and thoughtful ways of showing us how much you cared. You lifted us up, you circled the wagons, and enveloped us in ways we could never have imagined. And here we are today, celebrating Kim and his remarkable life in this beautiful synagogue that he considered his spiritual home. Thanks to them. No questions asked, no Jewish pedigree required, just the love for a man who committed himself to doing right by our community in all the ways he knew how. I'm combining these two things on purpose, our interfaith marriage and the splendor of this Jewish community, because it's important to me that you all understand that this community is special. Whenever I've tried to express my appreciation and awe at the care and concern extended to us these last 6 months, it was inevitably met by a modest dismissal of, it's just what we do. But the thing is, it's not what every community does. Charlotte is special, unique, and pure. And I want you to know, so I'm standing here telling you, I want you to know that for the Worrel family, it's been life-changing. I stand here today profoundly sad and a little bit broken, but I look out at all of you, and I know you'll help me and my family. You'll help us heal and make us whole again. And even more importantly, Kim knew that too. Thank you for all you've given us. I am forever grateful.
Jeff, I remember the first time, not that I met Kim, but I heard about Kim. I was having lunch with Alan and Rita Sue Gold, members of my previous congregation in Dallas, after I announced that I was moving here to Charlotte. And their daughter-in-law, Beth, who is here today, and who was Sue's maid of honor, and Sue was her maid of honor at their weddings, their respective weddings. And Beth had already been preparing me for how much I was going to love Sue. And Beth, you were right more than I can possibly express. But your in-laws, well, they kept going on and on about Kim. He was the best golfer, the best teacher, one of the best humans you could possibly ever meet. Sue was great, of course. But Kim was precious. And they were right. Leave it to the Golds to know people who are gold. Anna and I had really young children when we moved here to Charlotte, and I began attending different evening Federation and Jewish communal events while Anna was at home putting the kids to bed. And at each event, I'd see Kim, as Sue just said. Always there, always supporting you. And one evening, Senator Joe Lieberman was here speaking in the sanctuary, and I found myself once again the third wheel to Sue and Kim. And Sue was off meeting various leaders and making sure everything ran on time. And Kim and I ate hors d'oeuvres and talked and talked and talked. And I got to meet Senator Lieberman, and I sat through his speech next to Kim, and I have little to no memory of what he said that night. Sorry, Sue. When I got home, Anna wanted to know what the senator had said and what he was like, and I spent the next hour talking about Kim. And over the years, I felt that I really was honored to become his rabbi, as he called me. So here's what I know. I don't think Kim would have wanted a eulogy or to be the center of attention, having us talk about him in pious tones. So I want to make it perfectly clear to everyone here that this is not a eulogy. Instead, I'd like to talk about a golf course, about a place where people can enjoy the game that gave direction and focus to Kim's life, to eat some chicken salad sandwiches as Kim did and experience the beauty of being outdoors, to share the love of a sport that brought generations together. Kim was simultaneously pragmatic and romantic about golf. Sure, he knew the business and the sides that the business brought, but he always was able to see the beauty of the game, to know the golf course was a way about teaching life, that if you kept the ball in bounds, you were likely to make par, that if you don't aim for the albatross and the unachievable, you play for par or better, and if you happen to hit a bogey, that there's room for improvement, as was said. Kim taught that life has bunkers and sand traps, and you can't just take mulligan after mulligan after mulligan like maybe I would, because learning requires learning how to recover not just from the same spot, but from wherever the ball lies. A good lesson of resiliency. And Kim taught as a father and as a boss how to read the grain in the grass. He could identify the sweet spot and teach you how to hit it, even with his eyes closed. He knew the long game and the short game and how to play both well. He was a master teacher and role model and somehow played lights out because he was a real pro. But he could hang or teach with the elite players and athletes and clients, and he was never too full of himself to pick up a mop or to get his hands dirty. Humble and kind and generous. Our loss today is profound because Kim was profound. For Kim, golf was life because it gave lessons on how to live and give honors, to be gracious, to walk the walk. From Crestview Golf Course of his childhood and extended through each and every day of his life. But in case that sounded like a eulogy, I want to remind you that this is not a eulogy. So let's talk about Moses, as rabbis are wont to do. In this week's Torah portion, Moses is coming to the end of his life, and the great leader was willing to take off his sandals and get his feet dirty, to do the hard work, to journey for 40 years, to teach a new generation to grow safely and with strength. Moses' lasting impact and the lessons he taught us are still felt today. Moses never reached the promised land, but what he learned in facing his own death was that reaching the promised land wasn't ever an achievable goal in the first place. Moses died, and then the Torah ends, and the people haven't even reached the promised land. It's kind of a weird end to a story. Rather, what Moses teaches us is that the goal is about how we live with integrity, how we inspire generations to see themselves as having agency to change the world. It was about teaching virtues and values that help people in all of their journeys, connecting them, guiding them. For Moses, and I can tell you as Kim's rabbi, having made the journey was just as important than the destination itself. Kim was clear-headed about his diagnosis and about the reality of his death. He knew what was before him. He knew what mattered to him, both in how he wanted to live and how he wanted to die, in his home, with his family by his side, feeling like he had a complete life. And those of us who are here who know that some journeys end even as ours continue, we know that it's painful. It's really sad. But what doesn't end, what never ends, is the way that we journey with the light of Kim's wisdom and love and disarming honesty and strength. What doesn't end and will never end are Kim's lessons, because they shine a path for us and guide us on our way. So just look around. A community that supports his wife and family because he supported his wife and family to build and sustain relationships, to be involved in community, to make Judaism and Jewish Charlotte a commitment. None of Sue's work would have been possible without the partnership of Kim. That's a fact. So just look around and know that our benefit is because of a strong partnership and spouses who pick up more and support more than the community may ever realize. And just look around and see that the former employees and that he empowered and appreciated him are doing same for the people and the colleagues that they work with. And just look around and see 3 amazing sons who make their world better through their lives. And a marriage that was the foundation of a home built on love and laughter, strong opinions, and even louder laughter. This is not a eulogy. No words. Just look around and see the blessings in our world because Kim taught us to live with integrity. It was never about legacy for Kim. And that's precisely why Kim's legacy is so strong. We continue to live with his legacy in how we choose to live with the compassion and kindness and empathy, with deep love and a romanticism about what the world can be. What a legacy he has planted. We will continue to walk the course that he shaped. At our last meeting, Kim and Sue came to Temple and we spoke about what was to come. And he was concerned about leaving you and the 3 of you and your families. And he wanted to talk about heaven. And I explained to him honestly that intellectually, I don't know what's to come. Our tradition has something to say, words about what's to come, but it's hard to exactly know. But here's what I know. In the Mourner's Kaddish, which we're going to recite very soon, at the very end it says, Oseh shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. May the one who causes peace to reign in the high heavens, let peace descend upon us. And my mentor and teacher taught me to listen to the pairing. Shalom bimromav. Shalom in the heavens, where our loved one's life breath is returned to the breath of the world, which we call Echad, the oneness of the universe. And Shalom Aleinu, Shalom here amongst us. Heaven and earth are interwoven and infused by one overarching shalom, one overarching peace, one shimmering and mysterious wholeness. I can't tell you what's beyond for Kim or for any of us, but I believe with my whole being that we are forever interwoven, heaven and earth, in a wholeness of existence. May Kim's light shine on, like the stars of the heavens, lighting our way. Kim Worrel, Zecher Tzadik Livracha. May the memory of the righteous always abide as a blessing. Amen. I invite you to please rise for the words of El Malei Rachamim.
El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bameromim, Hamtzei Menucha Nechona, Tachak Kanfei HaShechina, B'mahalot Kedoshim U'Tehorim, Kizohar Harakia Mazirim, Et Nishmat Yakirenu Kim Worrel Ish Tov Shehalach Leolamo, Ana Barachamim Hasireu B'Seit Knafecha Leolamim Utzeror Bitror Hachayim Et Nishmato Adonai Hu Nachalato Ve'anuach Beshalom Al Mishkavo Venomar Amen. El Malei Rachamim, exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of our dear Kim Worrel, a good man, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen.
As we spoke about, the mourner's Kaddish does not speak about death. It thanks God for the lives that were lived. And we thank God for Kim's life with the words of Kaddish Yatom. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'gala uvizman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mivarach le'olam olamei olamaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal shemei dekudesha barichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechamata, da'amiram be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May God grant peace to those who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved amongst us. And I invite all who are gathered here to repeat these words after me, speaking them directly to Kim's family. May God console you with all who mourn in Zion and Jerusalem. Hamakom yinachem etchem b'toch sha'ar avlei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. Now we go forth in peace to life. I ask that everyone remain standing exactly where you are as the family departs, and we'll see you in the foyer on the way out.